Alright, so hey friends, welcome to another one. As you can see, this video is a little bit different. It's not going to be about simming this time. As promised, I decided to start up a small series on how you can play ranged DPS a little bit better in Raid. So I decided to just give a series about like tips on how to improve. And the first tip that we'll be talking about today is the global cooldown. So the primary rule that every ranged player should strive for when they're playing in Raid is the ABC. And ABC stands for always be casting. So every time you're just doing a mechanic, doing a fight, you should try to maintain any casts possible on the boss, and you should be trying to do this as much as possible. But of course, sometimes there are fights which require you to move. There are mechanics which constantly, put you in danger and require from you that you just get the hell out of the way from. And this, in theory, could mean potential downtime on the boss. However, each class has some abilities which allow them to limit that downtime. However, there's one thing which I think all ranged DPS kind of share together, which can help them to combat this problem. And this is what we call the global cooldown movement. So, for those of you who don't know, the global cooldown is, a short period of time between casting each abilities, right? So if I fling this Ice Lance, you can see on my WoWProgress here, there's this, spinning circle throughout the whole icon, which basically tells me that until this circle passes, I cannot use any other abilities. And while this, kind of sucks in some cases, there are situations in which we can use this to our advantage. So, for example, right now, you can see me just, tunneling the boss. And let's say that I have a mechanic that I have to move out from. What can I do? Instead of just stopping casting and moving, I can use one of my instant cast abilities and move at the same time. So let's say I got a swirly below me underground, I have to move, and instead of just stopping, I can actually use my instant cast, use the global cooldown, sidestep a bit, and then continue. Right? And if you think about it, you can cover quite a lot of distance if you have enough of those instant casts. Let's say as a mage, I have my Ice Lances, right? And every time I use one, I can, let's say, move a bit. I also have things like Comet Storm. Yeah, I press Comet Storm, I move a bit. I got a Fingers of Frostbrook, I can move again. My Frozen Orb is off cooldown, I can press it, move again, right? Another Fingers, can move again. And so on and so forth. You get the idea, right? So I really advise you, if you're, trying to learn this, just look at your spells, look at your abilities, and check what is classified as an instant cast and what kind of abilities trigger this global cooldown. Some less obvious examples of this are your main cooldowns. Right now we live in a world of BFA where a lot of the main cooldowns are also on the GCD. And while this is not the best situation, you can use this also as a way of movement. For me, this main cooldown is Icy Veins. So if I really have to, I can also use Icy Veins to move a bit, right? And I again covered some distance. Essences work in the same way. I can just press Rock Boy for a bit, move again, right? Frozen Orb, move again. Fingers, move again, right? So you can see how much distance I was able to cover during this whole period of time. Your defensive can work in the same way. For me, Ice Barrier is also an instant cast. If I have to use a defensive, I can press a defensive, move a little bit forward. Very useful, for example, on Orgozoa, right? On Orgozoa, there's a mechanic where a lot of ranged have to spread at the same time. You can use some of the time, yeah, if you're going back out, to use the defensive. Let's say I have to spread, I can pop barrier, move a bit, yeah? So little things like this, overall, if you are able to work on this, can really improve, like dramatically, how well you move during a fight. So, like I say, I really advise you to think about this and look at it in a little bit more detail. I will probably cut off this part right now and move just to a short segment where I'll be just showing this in a little bit more dynamic example. Okay, so now I want to just present this GCD rule in a little bit more dynamic example, how all of this can improve your performance on a raid fight. So this is Lady Ashvane. For everybody who has done this boss, you know that this is a very tight DPS check that you need to fulfill if you want to progress this boss, you know, smoothly. And right now we're about to hit stage 2, where we need to pump as much damage as possible during that burn phase. So you can see here, one of the things that we need to consider as ranged is this arcing azurite mechanic. This is where two people get linked with each other, and you need to create a line which cuts as many of these corals as possible. Which means, if this mechanic comes, you should be as close to these corals as you can. And you need to be as far out as possible to cover the most distance that you can. So, if you want to prepare for this, as a fire mage, for example, I have my instant pyroblast also that I can use for movement. So right now, yeah, we're tunneling boss, and you can see here, every time I pop the instant pyro, I move a bit. I'm looking for, you know, a way, how can I position myself, and how I can, you know, stand to just be ready whenever this mechanic happens. So right now, yeah, I'm just looking for an opening, and you can see here, right? I see that I want to be far out, but I don't want to be outside of range of the boss. So I just moved backwards a bit using this instant cast GCD situation. And now I have another instant cast ready, and I will start moving back. Yeah, just to be ready whenever this mechanic comes for me. Yeah, and again, yeah, I have another instant. I'm a little bit further out, yeah, and I'm ready whenever this, you know, happens to me. And again, moving. Yeah, the boss is moving as well, so it means that I can be a little bit more free with the situation, and, you know, maybe move even further out if I desire to, and etc, etc, right? So I'm, you know, moving here, let's say, without losing any damage. And you can see that if somebody is maybe just standing still in the camp, and then they have to move, they have to cover a lot of distance if now they get the arcing azurite. Compared to what could have been a little bit better, moving with the global cooldowns, not losing the damage, and being ready whenever the mechanic comes to you, and boom, right? I get the arcing azurite. And I can react a little bit better to this than maybe somebody who is, you know, back there in the camp, or yeah, in some other direction. So, you know, this is, let's say, one way of looking at it. Another example is actually in the same clip. If you pay close attention to this little purple boy, who is our boy Slaxter. Just for context, I believe Shadow Priest has Void Bolt, it has its dots, or at least one of them, and it has Power Word Shield as instant casts. And you will see Slaxter using this as well to prepare for arcing azurite. So you can see he's right here doing his thing. Yeah, he's moving a little bit. Now, if you still pay close attention to the purple boy, Slaxter now just channeling mind play, doing his own thing. And now pay close attention to the purple boy. So if you pay, yeah, if you check this out, he used Void Bolt and he moved a bit. Right? He didn't lose that much damage. He moved a bit. Now, you just noticed, just go back 1 second. Notice how he's using Powered Shield to cover more distance and, well, maybe loses a little bit of damage, but gets ready for any burst damage or any damage that might come in front of him. So he uses Powered Shield. Boom. If I remember exactly, Powered Shield is also has a talent which boosts movement speed, so that's just, you know, a double plus for him. And he's moving more. Maybe he moved a little bit too much, right? But he didn't waste his time as somebody who just could have walked and done nothing, right? And he's right here, chilling with me. And now he is popping another Void Bolt right into the boss and moving again. And boom. You can see how much distance Slax has covered from this place to here, and he was able to do something every time, right? Be it a instant cast, be it a defensive ability, but it's not just stopping casting, moving, and that's it. Unfortunately, he gets upsurge in a bit, so that's just a little bit rip. But you can see how well you can improve if you think about your global cooldowns. So yeah, that's all I wanted to share. That's all I wanted to show. Feedback is much appreciated with these videos. I have to say, I'm not a ranged DPS player god, and I don't think of myself as that one, but I just wanted to share what I learned, what I know with you guys, so we can improve and just, you know, progress some bosses together much more effectively. So yeah, I'll be probably making some more things like that, you know, just as a means of improvement so that we can move on together. And I hope to see you guys in the next one. Have a good one, and bye.